really pleased to introduce our expert on that, Dr. Digby McDonald, who is a professor at UC Berkeley and extremely knowledgeable about material science, and who has prepared a detailed declaration for Mothers for Peace that has gone to the NRC, and he has also submitted testimony to the PUC. I think anybody who thinks that Diablo Canyon, especially Unit 1, is safe to operate needs to hear from Dr. McDonald. Go ahead, Dr. McDonald.
Thank you, Diane. Let's go back a bit to the start of the reactor itself. It was recognized that the weld metal contained too much nickel and too much copper. Instead of grinding out the welds and re-welding them with the correct weld wire, they just simply left it in place and started operating the plant. But they did recognize that the reactor surveillance program should have had 5 capsules for the program, and then that got reduced to 4 capsules, and again got reduced to 3 capsules. And so they pulled the 3 capsules out in a period of roughly 10 years for each capsule, and they analyzed them, and PG&E made a determination that the critical reference temperature of 270 degrees Fahrenheit for a longitudinal weld would be achieved somewhere around about 2021. According to the NRC regulations, that should have put a stop to the operation of the reactor until PG&E had come up with a remedial program, for example, reducing powers to reduce the fluence, continued accumulation of fluence on the reactor vessel. They didn't do that. So they pulled all the samples out of the capsules, they did the Sharpie test, and they found, as I indicated, that they would meet the critical condition around about 2021. They then did a remarkable thing, and they declared, because 2 points in the points that they analyzed against generic reactors were slightly out of the plus or minus 1 standard deviation range, they declared all of the data non-credible. And what that meant is that we have no plant-specific data on Diablo Canyon Unit 1. Now, if you went to your physician and your physician said to you, "Oh, I don't need to check you today because I checked your brother yesterday," you would be a little upset, I would assume. And the reason for that is that human beings, or all living systems, are very complicated systems, but so are nuclear reactors. And you can have 2 identical reactors start operating, and very quickly they become individuals. And so you wouldn't accept a doctor's decision, even if your brother was an identical twin. And neither should we accept the decision by NRC and PG&E to use generic data to illustrate the safety of Diablo Canyon 1. So right now we have no plant-specific data, and it just boggles the mind that anybody would propose to continue operation of the reactor under those circumstances. So what PG&E needs to do, in my humble opinion, is to shut the reactor down and pull the remaining samples, subject the samples that have already been tested to other tests such as nano-indentation, and demonstrate to the citizens of California that the plant is safe to operate. Without that, they should shut it down. Thank you.
Digby, would you please just explain a little bit what is the role of the pressure vessel and why that particular component is so critical?
Yes, the pressure vessel contains the core, and so it separates the outside environment from the radioactive core, where the fissioning of uranium is occurring, producing all sorts of nasty fission products and high, of course, fluxes of neutrons. Now, if there's a loss of coolant accident, say, for example, a pipe breaks somewhere in the plant, then the emergency cooling system kicks in, and it injects cold water into the hot pressure vessel. And that induces thermal shock. And that thermal shock induces high stresses to be created within the pressure vessel. So if there's a crack there or a flaw, that flaw can grow and rupture the pressure vessel. That then would release radioactive material into the containment structure. Now, nuclear reactors in the Western world have all had containment structures, but in the Eastern world, as we know from Chernobyl, they didn't have a containment structure. So once they burst the pressure vessel, the radioactive material was released to the environment. But just the bursting of the pressure vessel alone, while it may contain the dispersal of radioactive material, is a major event, as we found out with 3 Mile Island. And so there's a lot of similarities between 3 Mile Island and Diablo Canyon, although the accident at 3 Mile Island is really operator error. They're not reading or not taking the implication of what the information coming from the gauges should have told them. And they turned on the wrong valves and so forth, and of course the rest is history. Is that clear?
Thank you.
So it's the thermal shock, which is the danger. And now, if, as Diane mentioned, they have not done the ultrasound examinations that they should have done for the last 20 years. And those ultrasound examinations are to detect flaws. The creation of flaws is a stage after the embrittlement itself. And so it's the flaws, if they're properly orientated with respect to the axis of the stress, there's the flaws that grow in a brittle manner through the pressure vessel. So just think of the 2 stages as the brittlement of the steel by the impact of neutrons and displacement of atoms out of their normal positions, and then the creation of flaws, voids, if you like, that are normally saucer-shaped, and if they happen to be oriented with perpendicular to the stress that's created by the thermal shock, then they will go through the pressure vessel. So it's a very bad situation that we have. I mean, to have a reactor with no surveillance information is incredible. I just don't see how anybody could operate the reactor under those circumstances. One thing that's disturbing in all of this is that engineering decisions are being overridden by political decisions. And when that happens, very bad things can occur. And so I think we should keep that in mind, that whether the reactor is safe to operate or not is an engineering decision, not a political decision.